Welcome back to The Wedding Buzz. It's your host, Sydney, and today we are doing part 2 of our behind the scenes series where we are talking about what you don't see in the Instagram photos. And today we are specifically talking about the logistics. The logistics is something that people really never see. I mean, in part 1, we talked about the design, and in the end, people do see the design. That's, you see the pretty colors on Pinterest or Instagram. You see the pretty colors and the design in the photos, but the logistics is something you don't see. But let me tell you, if the logistics aren't done well, you'll feel it. You will feel it. Your guests will feel it. And unfortunately, when it's done well, people kind of you feel it in a good way because the day is just smooth. But where people really feel it is when it's done badly, because unfortunately, the negative sticks out like a sore thumb. So let's talk about the logistics because it matters. This is where you take those details and you figure out how are we going to bring it to life. Like it is that bridge. How are we going to bring it to life? So number 1, timeline. I love me some timeline. I love making the timeline. It's actually one of my favorite parts of wedding planning. Like when I think about scaling my business, I definitely think about okay, I can pawn posting on social media off. I can delegate that task. If I think about, asking a gazillion vendors for quotes or something like that is something as I grow my team, I'm like, okay, maybe I can have someone, I could be like, hey, reach out to these 5 people and get some quotes for me or something. But the timeline is something that I really think no matter how big my company gets, I'll have my nose in every little timeline because I love it. I love it. And it just makes the day go so well. You can just feel when the timeline is smooth sailing, everything's happening as it should. That is the goal. That is, usually how most events go. And the best thing is sometimes events, things happen, life is life. So we might get behind, hair makeup is a little behind or something. But when the timeline is done well, we have buffer time and then we catch up and the day is still fine. So let's talk about timeline because it's way more detailed than you probably think. Every part of the day must be on the timeline, starting from vendor arrivals to that sparkler exit at the very end of the night. Building in buffer time, travel between locations, time for everyone to actually get dressed, time to walk to the different locations. If your ceremony's at one place and your reception's at another place, that's travel time. But don't forget, if you're in a hotel, okay, we're going to go do our first look downstairs in the lobby or out in the back of the hotel. It might take 5-10 minutes to walk down the hallway, wait for the elevator, get in the elevator, go downstairs. Now you're in the lobby. Oh my gosh, you're a bride. Everybody's going to stop you and be like, oh my God, you look so pretty. It takes time, you guys. So it's not a bad thing if it's just in the timeline. If you just put bride head to first look location, 10 minutes, boom, done, easy, calm. We're not running, we're not sweating, we're chill, we're good because it's in the timeline from the get-go. Time for the actual photos, time for bustling your dress, and let's be honest, time for you to go pee in that wedding dress because trust me, it takes time. And not to be TMI, but sometimes my brides have to do more than just pee, and that takes even more time. So we want to have extra time in the timeline, you guys. It's not a bad thing if the time is allotted. So this is one of my favorite parts of planning. I was just saying that because it really makes the entire day come together. And so I highly suggest that you have a full wedding planner just to make the entire wedding planning process go smooth from start to finish. But if you don't have a planner, please at least have a coordinator for that final phase of planning, whether it's a month of coordinator or event management, the last 2-3 months, have someone come in, tie your details together for you, and then run the show on the day of. Because no, just because someone says, I was a bridesmaid once and I know what I'm doing. No. And it's no offense to that person, whether it's you saying I know what I'm doing or not. The wedding party and the family has never seen the actual behind the scenes. They might have been part of the wedding party, but they've never been part of the planning unless they legit worked for a planner. So when my sister got married, I was like, I kind of know what's happening, but not because I was a bridesmaid before, which I was a bridesmaid before, but not just because I was a bridesmaid before, but because I had worked for a wedding planner. I had worked the behind the scenes. Like I really knew all the details and the back and forth of what goes into it. So unless you have someone like that in your corner, seek out professional help so that they can at least help build you an accurate timeline. I promise you, it makes or break your whole day. So the second part of this that is so crucial is communication. Communication is absolutely key. So final confirmations, diagrams, load in, load out, power needs, all needs to be communicated with the entire vendor team. Again, if you have a planner or coordinator, we take care of all of this for you. But if you don't, make sure you're really looking into everything that needs to be done, everything that needs to be communicated. And in phase 1, part 1 of this series, we talked about the design, and now the logistics is bringing that design, to life. Like, how are we going to actually make this happen? And so going back to the design, that's where diagrams come in. What is the layout of your room? If you're going to have different floral arrangements or backdrops or signage, where are all these things going? So your planner should do this, or your florist they'll work together. If you don't have a good team, you're going to have to do this of making a diagram of where's your welcome sign going? Where's a backdrop going? Where's the photo booth going? How are your tables going to be laid out? How many chairs are going to be at each table? What is going on your table? Do you have a linen? Do you have a runner? Do you have a charger? Are the forks and knives being set out on the table? These are all the logistics that need to be decided on and written up in some type of way to then be communicated to the entire vendor team. So I always have a diagram of the ceremony, the cocktail hour, and then the reception of where all the tables and chairs and everything is going to go. I have a diagram of where every single guest is going to be sitting, who has allergies, and where the people with allergies are sitting. And like I said, I have a diagram of all the decor, the signage, where everything's going. These are all crucial details to have in advance and to communicate with the entire team so that the day is smooth. Don't forget to have a separate wedding party and family timeline. This needs to include what time they need to get dressed, what time they need to be ready for photos, and where they need to meet for photos. I go over this at the rehearsal so that I can look everybody in the eye and be like, you will be here and ready and dressed and sober at 2 p.m., right? I just feel like it goes a long way having that conversation in advance. Last month, I had a wedding that we didn't do a rehearsal, and it was fine, but I will say that, the family was like, where are we going? What are we doing? Huh? Like a little more confused than I would have liked. Everything worked out totally fine. I did make a timeline for them, and the bride, texted it out to the family, and most everybody was in the lobby of the hotel ready for photos at the same time, but it just is helpful if there's a rehearsal and we can have that conversation in advance. So at the very least, text it, communicate it with everybody. I will say, unfortunately, when you type out timelines, not everybody will read it, which is so annoying. You spend all that time on your timeline and then for people not to read it. So anyway, I just highly recommend that not only do you have the timeline, but make sure that you communicate it by not just sending it to them, but maybe have like a little family powwow meeting of let's talk through the day to make sure everyone is on the same page. So the next thing for the logistics that I want you to think about is the guest experience and the flow. When you're planning the details of the day, make sure that you think about what the guests are going to be doing at each part of the day, because that will help their experience be even better. So when you're planning the details of your wedding day, make sure you're thinking of how the guests will move through the day. And then this ties into the logistics of like logistically, where are they arriving? Where are they walking? Where do they park? What's the first thing they're going to see when they walk in? Is there shade? Is there somewhere for them to sit? Is there somewhere for them to get a drink? So these are all really important things that have to do with the design of the day and the flow. But also the logistics of, the logistics side of the design of not just what the day is going to look like, but how's it going to feel and like physically, how is it going to work? It's really important to think about parking, signage, transitions between spaces. All of these things can make or break the guest experience. You don't want them to feel lost or confused or, oh no, now they have to walk across the street in their heels and they didn't expect that. It's never a good feeling when people are lost and confused. And unfortunately, those are things that stick out in their memory. So accessibility and comfort are very important for a positive guest experience. So again, it ties in the design of the day and the logistics. Make sure that as you're planning your design, you then think through the logistics of how do I bring this design to life and how do I logistically, make everything flow well together. So my final thoughts here, logistics are what makes everything else possible. You can have all these great ideas, but how are you logistically going to pull it all together? Logistics are the bridge from your vision to your actual wedding day. So speaking of wedding day, how does this all take place? We will be talking about the actual wedding day next week in part 3. And I hope you guys are enjoying this little series. We have now talked about the design. We've talked about the logistics, and now we got to execute the plan. So join me next week in part 3 when we will be talking about the wedding day itself. See you guys there.